All right. And we're live. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I want to say something before anyone asks. Miranda can't be here. She is actually staying at a friend's place right now because she's about to deploy to Germany with the army. So most likely, if you have questions and put them in chat, most likely I'll miss them. Right? I'm not gonna pick them up. So I'm gonna prepare you right now, unless someone spams them with highlighted messages or who knows what. I will probably not see them. Hopefully, I'm not sure about the next episode she's gonna be back because I guess they need to get situated and all that stuff. So we don't really know when she's gonna have the chance to be back on, but we'll see, right? Deploy to Germany, yes. It's not a combat deployment, luckily, right? So they're just doing logistics work and working together with whatever, with all. I guess I don't even know what exactly that deployment is for. Maybe that's OPSEC. Maybe the CIA is gonna come after me if I tell you guys. So you gotta ask Miranda, I guess. But yeah, for our guest today, I pre-pinged him in my Discord actually as the enemy, right? Most people are very familiar with him. Dunk is the leader of Brave, and he is pretty well known for his sodas or not sodas, and he has also been on the CSM. Which we probably will talk about also. And yeah, glad to have you on and that you can make it.
Yeah, it's much more fun to be chatting with you than me doing my work meeting. So I blocked it on my calendar so we could talk in the middle of my Friday, get me closer to the weekend.
Always happy to be a good excuse. So do you think people actually, when I painted as the enemy, do you think people actually were hoping we would be sitting here shouting at each other and they were looking for the drama maybe?
I think people are always looking for drama. It's Eve, of course, but I think enough people in Eve know me that I don't usually go off the handle. I'm not usually the most hyperbolic about things, so I think they probably know what to expect. I've been on the Meta show a few times, and people kind of, I think, who follow Twitch shows kind of know who I am and what I'll be like. So I think they're interested to just hear us chat.
Yeah, well, I kind of played into this drama thing, but I think in my case it's probably the same. People know I'm not inviting people to set them up or to cause a fight.
Look, yeah, I work in TV marketing, so I understand you're just kind of marketing it to try and get the viewers. So I totally get it. It's all good.
Well, I guess. All right, so you're the leader of Brave, but from what I understand, and I'm not a big Eve historian, I have to say, the guy who started Brave was actually Kigali, if I'm not mistaken. Or who started Brave?
So Brave was started by a person named Matthias Otero right after the Battle of Asakai. And he was just a guy that started up this corp, Brave Newbies, wanted to try something different. And for just kind of sheer luck in the beginning, it got popular because, back in those days, they inspected you with a fine tooth comb before they let you in a corp. And then Brave just said, everybody can join. So it started snowballing. And then early on, CCP did a marketing stunt about Brave Newbies, and then it just really kicked off from there. So I joined on the 5th day. I had read the news about Asakai, and at the time, I looked at Goons and Reddit, and Goons, you had to have a something awful account for some amount of time, and Reddit wasn't recruiting at the time for some reason, so I joined Brave.
Wait a second, what? Reddit wasn't recruiting?
I know, having played this game long enough, a lot of the memes about everyone, if you've played long enough, most of it you realize that was not their origin story. It was added later. So yeah, Matthias ran it for a while. It got really out of control and huge, and Then Lichten Condor took over because Matthias really wasn't interested in running a big thing. He set some of our kind of guiding principles about like fun per hour, staying classy, and then Lichten took over for a while in a tumultuous governance period that took us into being a new coalition, and it kind of fell apart. Nancy Crow took over for a while when we were in Fountain, got us out of Fountain, and then Kigali took over as CEO. He still remains the actual executor, and for years I have avoided it every possible way to be in command and have leadership roles, but I keep getting dragged into it. So now I've been appointed the interim CEO. To
Interim CEO.
That's what he called it in his post. So I'm kind of just running with it for now. So I'm happy to fade into the background whenever that time comes along.
I think most, I don't want to say FCs, but most leaders, like when they kind of develop into the role of the leadership like position, it's usually the better path than the guy who's like, I want to be this megacorp CEO, right? And then starts a corp and then recruits everything he can, and like that's usually that usually doesn't end too well, I feel like. So I think the more organic like development path is usually the better, um, the better path anyway. The guys who don't want to be the guy on top are usually the more competent ones, I gotta say.
Well, it was funny the other day. Someone in our Slack where we talk about things linked me to a video in from 2017 in which I was talking about on one of the videos I made about how proud I was. I had avoided being named second in command, and I had avoided responsibility yet again. So they were making fun of me that I had not avoided it.
Yeah, and I know the fear, right? Like in corp, like I really so my corp originally, like someone else was CO2, right? Shout out to Flinkfinger. I don't think he's like active enough to watch this, but uh, he was the CEO, and he slowly faded into inactivity. I never aimed to then take the CEO position or whatever, but he simply wasn't around, and someone had to keep the role, right? So you can keep stuff going and you can assign roles and all that stuff. So, and that person then happened to be me, right? And I remember I was like, oh yeah, that's how this happens. Then suddenly, like you're officially the guy, and then everyone asks you for like, what do we do and all that stuff. And like let's just do what we always do, right? It's like undock and kill some dudes, and we just kept going with that, and that kind of worked out. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's all I'm trying to do, right? It's like uh, in these days especially, I just want Eve to be a place people can come, have some fun, not be stressed out, and have a little respite from the chaos of the real world. So that's kind of what I'm focused on: is how do we keep it still enjoyable and fun, but not where people have stomach aches over this thing, get so upset.
yeah, and it's not always easy, right? It can get personal. Um, some people get dragged into that stuff easier than others. Um, you know, it can get nasty. And I think when this war kicked off, you actually made like the soda. I think I saw a soda. You actually said exactly that, right? Don't worry, guys. It's gonna get nasty. It's gonna be wins. There's gonna be losses, right? And I think that's pretty much exactly what happened, right? That was the only. I think that was the only prediction for the war that came 100% true. Which I mean, it was an easy prediction to be fair, but everyone else, like you know,
Well, it's easy to pound your chest and tell everyone it's always going to go our way and everyone's going to get out of our way. It's going to be just great and everything's going to be sweet. But to be realistic with people, that's what they want. They want to know what to expect. And I just felt, we've been through multiple wars in the last few years with Winterco that weren't easy, and we've been kicked out of regions before, lost all our space, been very close to failscade before. So I know that it runs through people's minds, and I think it's easier to just be honest about what to expect, and so people are prepared than to try and tell them something that then you have to backtrack on later.
yeah, I 100% agree. Um, so
So Miranda in the chat was asked about my background. So the background I have up is from the balcony at the CCP old headquarters looking out over the bay. This is where we would come and stand outside in between CSM meetings. So that's why I put it up.
Maybe I need a more professional uh, setup myself. Maybe next time.
Yeah, I'll DM you all the tricks I use.
Well, I think you use actually the same tool I'm using. It's the VCam thing, right?
I'm using NVIDIA Broadcast, which is a really
All right.
sweet tool.
Was it free?
It's free, but it only works if you have an NVIDIA card.
Oh,
So
I do. And I think I talked to that to 3 tiers and the other guys, and they also brought it up. So I might just test that actually. Not that I
yeah,
need a
it's a lot.
fancy background, but yeah.
Well, it's just 100 times easier than all the OBS and all the super complicated stuff. It basically, well, you'll see it when you try it. I'm sure they don't want to hear us do tech talk.
No, that's true. Um, all right. So you talked about Brave and how it all developed and how you got into like. So what do you think? How did Brave develop over the years? Like, how did it change to what it was originally?
Well, I think the change has been pretty significant. I mean, when we started, it was just hordes of people not taking it seriously, very much like the early goon swarm of like your ammo costs more than our ships kind of thing. And then Brave tried to do this thing where we tried to intentionally be in an orange donut when we formed this hero coalition, um, and we didn't have any supers. We had very few capital ships, and it was fun for a little bit. When someone powerful takes interest in you, it became very difficult to survive when you had no friends, no diplomacy, no super caps, that kind of thing. So I think to survive in the game the way it is, especially now, 7+ years later from that, we've just had to evolve to where we have to be part of a larger group and we have to have our own powerful forces to fight. And that's just the nature of the game right now. If they just took out, you know, supers and titans from the game, it would take a lot of pressure off of me to like, what do we have to do to defend our space and just live? But I don't see that happening anytime soon. So I think Brave has had to change both in kind of who do we ally with, what kind of pilots do we need, just because of the way the game works these days. So um, it would be fun to go back when everybody just came at us just in cruisers and battle cruisers, but that's not what the game is these days, for better or for worse.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it never has been. I mean, for the longest time, it hasn't been that way. I mean, it has always been kind of, if you don't have any friends, um, it's very tough. And Init has been in the same situation. After Init lost space in Immincy and Catch, and that's basically when I joined. It's like I don't even know, 11 years ago or something. It's crazy to even say it. 11 years ago, Init lost the space in Immincy and Catch, and we found ourselves on our own too. And for the longest time, we were living in Curse on our own. And in NPC space, you can do that. Right? You don't have to defend stuff and all that. Like, so you don't have to worry. But whenever we were in space, and back then there was no jump fatigue. Whenever we were in space with anything bigger than a battleship, there would be Sino chains lit up on the map, right? Be it PL and C and like all these guys. And you couldn't really feel much without like someone thinking, oh yeah, those little guys, there's no risk in just jumping all the caps all around, create some content for our guys, and dunk them really quick. And and that is that kind of forced us into a coalition back then too. I forgot actually which coalition it first was, but I think it's a similar situation, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was some fun in it. There's an incident I remember when Catch 1.0, when posses were the thing, and I was, I think, repping a posse, and I had two carriers back before carriers became carriers and Forsox, where we repped in carriers. And I'm dual boxing, and out of nowhere, Sino's in 3 PL Titans and Doomsday both of my carriers instantaneously. And there was nothing we could do, right? Like they just were going to get away scot free today, I don't think you could come to one of our systems with a bunch of Titans and get away so scot-free, but it really reinforced the point that there was a there is a level in Eve because of the way it's designed that if you can't operate at that level, you it's hard. It's hard to protect yourself, protect your space. So I don't have the answer to how to fix that, but I wish it didn't require the same level of defensiveness and coalition building um, that it does today. But that's just to maintain your infrastructure these days. You have to be strongly allied with a bunch of people.
Yeah. And one of the reasons, I mean, nowadays the power projection, it kind of got nerfed with jump fatigue, right? But what other reasons do you think are there why people tend to, or have to kind of look for bigger like groups to group up, build coalitions and stuff? Like, what else promotes that? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think still Eve is a game of numbers, right? It's an n plus one. So if you can bring two fleets against my one fleet, even if I have 250 in my one fleet, if you have 500 in your fleets, you're probably going to beat me. And so the more numbers you can bring to fights, it makes a difference. Whether skill can help you, but it doesn't solve every problem. And so I think still Eve suffers from this n plus one problem. We talked about it a lot when I was on the CSM about how do you make the game so it doesn't blobbing doesn't always win everything, but that's a key part of it right now. If you can bring enough numbers, you can defend anything or you can kill anything. I think we're seeing that all over the place in this war. That when the numbers show up, the other side just doesn't have a chance. And some people love it. They're all about the kill mails. I like the stories. I like the camaraderie. I like the head up brawls. But this war doesn't always give us that. And Eve
We
itself
try
right
our
now.
best.
Well, no, I think
I'm just
I've said before, like groups like Init and Brave are more like each other than most of the other groups. The groups are focused on having fun, tight bonds with the people. We're not so the other side as some of the other groups are, but you know, um, even groups like ours, which are large groups in the game, we need other allies to make sure we can do things and have protection when we need it. And that's the game design right now. So I know people get mad at me. I've changed Brave. You used to YOLO everything. Why are you joined up with these folks or that folks or aligned with them? But I don't know. When you're an organization of our size and we want to have some space where we can use all those resources, it doesn't feel like anyone our size or your size has a choice about being allied to somebody.
yeah. Um, were there any suggestions on the CSM? I mean, you probably can't even talk about it. I shouldn't even ask that. But like, what would you think would be a way to get around the M+1 problem? Because I honestly I can't think of a way to get around that. Because like you can't just incentivize bringing less. That would be kind of weird too, right? N-1, like yay.
Yeah, I'm not a great game designer, so I don't have. I think what the game has become has been more about fighting over a timer at a certain location in space, as opposed to I think what I felt we had more fun doing, which was kind of the roams and people smashing into each other for the sake of smashing into each other. And I don't know exactly how you encourage that, but when you have the fights are almost always over a specific objective where you're willing to really, full send, form strongly, and bring as many people as possible, then that's when the n+1 happens. So I don't know how you get the game so it's not so much about fighting over a specific timer where it's like there's some sort of incentive to go to an empty system and duke it out there for the sake of duking it out. But I don't when I was in the CSM we heard a lot of ideas, instant combat, things like that, but um, there's no great answer to it, right? It's this game's old and entrenched, and people worked hard for their supers and titans. They don't want them to just disappear. They train hard for their hacks. They don't want them to be nerfed. Like it's just there's no easy answers these days. But
so so just thinking about it right now, I think maybe the only way to get around the issue is to have not long timers but short ones. Because if you think about it, if you have short timers, your friends that are like, I don't know, a region or two away, they might just be too far. They might just have something else going on, and then they can't really show up to help you. So there might not even be that much help from those extra numbers. So defenders might be more forced to defend with what they have. That might actually be like, that's the only thing that comes to my mind right now. And I mean, we kind of
I mean,
see that.
the timer boards tell everybody what to do. So every side is looking at timer boards. Where are we going to defend? Where are we going to not defend? How many people do we bring to this one? What things are happening simultaneously? It's all about timer boards these days, and I don't know how we not incentivize following the timer board. But that to me, and I don't have the answer, is the thing that's the change I've seen. It's all timer based these days, especially in wartime.
Yeah, and another thing that I actually kept bringing up over and over is the ACL thing, right? So you have like an easy way of giving ACL access to someone else, to an entire group, which then allows them to take your jump bridges, take your citadels, and use them and all that stuff. And I'm not sure, like, yes, it's quality of life. People that like have to do with jump bridges and all that stuff, they love it, and I get it. But is it good for the game in the long run? I would argue it's not. I would argue it's not good for the game to have ACL access on all the kinds of things. Even the wormhole part. I mean, I get it. I use it a lot. I use it every day, obviously. It's nice, but there is an argument to be made that you might not want that luxury in the game, because it just enables too many groups to work together too easily. And then you end up with a situation like we have right now, right? It's basically, the universe is split in two. It's two groups basically right now. And then everyone
But
who's not in
I
a
think
group,
we've blown up all of each other's jump bridges at this point, though. I don't know how many
yeah,
jump
well,
bridges
that's
are
true.
left. They're all blown up on every side right now. So
That is true. They are usually targeted right away, and they are fairly easy to rev. But there's a lot of them, right? Like in well set up space and stuff, especially like Delve in the beginning. I mean, if I looked at the map and I had to travel through, I got confused, right? I don't even want to think about like someone who has to think about like, oh, we have to kill all these jump bridges so they can't get over here, for example. There's just too many of them, right? But yeah, that might just be the only
no,
thing.
I think that's part of it. I just, again, I have to, I'm always of two minds, and so when I put on my logistics hat, like, Eve has this, for some of us, it's very rewarding industry world of gameplay, but it's also incredibly painful the way it operates with having to literally physically move everything around the game that you want. And so it's so painful to do it now with the kind of even having jump bridges, things like that, to even make it worse for those logistics people. Like it's the engine of war is that. And so I always want to keep that in mind, because when people take down jump bridges, they're not just keeping fleets from moving around, right? They're keeping the war materials from moving around too, which is a tactic in war, but it also just makes that gameplay just so much more painful, and just not fun for no reward. So I
Yeah,
always think about that.
war materials, you don't really jump through jump bridges though. You would
You
like.
you would be surprised the amount of stuff that I mean, I had to fuel those jump bridges when freighters would be going through pretty regularly. So you'd be
Yeah,
surprised how
yeah.
much stuff people run through those things.
Maybe you should have left like one or two alive. I don't even
Well,
know. I think it kept them.
it's like the bait beacons, right? Like it provides
Yeah.
targets. So
Well, who would put up a bait beacon?
I don't know, but I hear they provide. The beacons will provide.
We would never do that. It's dishonorable. Well, I mean, maybe Shines did. I don't know. I have nothing to do with it. I think your camera froze.
Well, I changed something. Hold on.
At least it's a happy picture, so it's all good. But so another aspect of the war. Not sure if you're too busy right now to listen, but another thing of the war that I think is fascinating is the propaganda part. And I mean, the songs that came out, clearly the points go to Imperium, right? When it comes to the song, I mean, musically, like, there's no way you guys are ever gonna catch up to that. Um,
Well, if I could find someone who could, to sing or play an instrument, I'd be happy to supply them with some good lyrics. But it doesn't appear to be our strength right now.
Maybe you should try with like poems, like like instead of a
Yeah,
song,
yeah.
nobody has to sing it. I'm not sure if it has the same effect.
Well, yeah. I mean, everybody does the propaganda their own way. I mean, the Imperium definitely has a great propaganda team out there doing stuff. Most of it's good and lighthearted, which is awesome.
Well, yeah, most, right? Sometimes, someone picks up, like, takes it in his own hands to, provide propaganda, and he kind of like goes that step too far in certain directions. Be it, I haven't seen a bad song like someone who can sing like that and can put so much effort into that. I think there's too much time involved, and in that time, someone would realize, okay, this goes too far, right? It's usually the quick things, the not so well done things that end up a little bit on the toxic side. I want to say. Um,
Well, yeah. I mean, I think this war. I've been in a lot of the wars, and this one is a lot. Feels to me a little more personal attack than in some of the wars in the past, and so the propaganda reflects that. But yeah, no, there's good, there's bad. People like what they like. It's just part of this game. I think it makes it interesting. You don't see propaganda like this with League of Legends players or any of that
no,
kind of stuff.
yeah, that makes Eve really unique. I gotta say, yeah, you don't see that even in other MMOs. Like, what MMO would even be close to Eve, like story wise and all that stuff? I don't think there's any. Like for World of Warcraft, nobody knows about like Alliance A versus Alliance B, the war like that happened in whatever 2009. Nobody knows. Besides maybe some people from Alliance A and B, right? They might just remember that. But even then, like they wouldn't go and say like epic story I have to tell this. Like, nope, it just probably happened 100 times all the time, and it had no influence on anything that's going on right now, right? So it's like it's all a little more hollow, right? I think that's the big fascination with Eve, obviously. Um,
Yeah, the only thing I compare it to is back a long time ago, I would play Ultima Online, which was like a predecessor to Eve, with full loss of your gear and everything like that. And that had, histories and stories and all that kind of stuff. But nobody plays Ultima Online anymore, right? But it had that same sense of grudges and loss and stories, and that is just missing from most of the other MMOs right now.
yeah, I I always like to give credit to CSP in that regard, definitely, right? There's no other game out there that's still trying to develop and like get somewhere and make it last. That's as old as Eve. Like whenever someone said like, "Oh yeah, you could do it like this game or that game," like yeah, like you can't compare this. Like this is different, right? This is a unique kind of thing. You can't just like drag a dev from League of Legends, drag him over here and say like, "Here, go ahead and do awesome shit for Eve." Like no, you gotta get into there. Like it's not gonna be easy to recruit any devs, and then it all developed like step by step from 2003 on. Like it's just a different kind of thing, and everything is an experiment to be honest, right? Or
Well, it's
it's the
just
first
it's such
time.
a ridiculously complex game, and that one of the big moments I had when I was in the CSM was, we've been in a day of meetings, we're out drinking at a bar, and I'm talking to one of the devs, and I'm having to explain to the dev the way this part of the game, certain gameplay works, and he's like, "No way, you're fucking shitting me." And I said, "Oh, it was worse before," and then I describe it 5 years ago, and then like it's so complex, like no one human can understand exactly how crazy this game is.
Yeah.
So it's if the devs can't understand it, which I don't blame them because it's ridiculous. Players are going to come in and they're just going to be overwhelmed. I'm surprised we get any new players at this point.
When it comes to devs that actually ask those questions, like I'm glad they exist, right? because a lot of devs might like, or like, I don't know if it's a lot of devs, but I guess it's easy to just say like, oh, yeah, I'm a dev on this. Like, I'm not gonna ask this. Like, I'm gonna look like an idiot if I ask this. Like, I don't know how this and this works, and I ask a player. Like, that's gonna discredit me, and then there's probably a lot of like stuff that people get worried about. So they never ask the question, and they work with like the minimal information they have and try their best. That probably happens all the time.
I think some degree, but I mean, for all my issues I might have with the way CCP does things, like, I don't find they have a big ego about this, right? I think, that's one thing the current CSM's really not getting, is not being able to be in person with them, because there is a lot that happens when you're in the room and you're at a whiteboard, when you're out having dinner, in which it's a very open conversation. Like, I have to give credit to CCP; they talk to the CSM very honestly about what's going on for the most part. There's been some surprises that have happened, but when they want to know about the game and they want to know about, like, how do players feel about this or that and the other, they're open to hearing it. They don't always want to take our advice when you're on the CSM, but they do. They are open. They ask. I mean, we were giving presentations to CCP, and they ask a ton of questions. So I don't think they hide away from it. Again, I I don't know there's any other game that has anything like the CSM for kind of keeping that interaction going with players. So
Yeah,
I have to give credit. They're definitely not perfect, but I think they're better than a lot of game developers when it comes to learning about the game and not having a big ego about it.
yeah, I think so too. Actually, I don't think there's another game that has like devs that are like working so close with the player base. Um, and then CSM members, like every now and then you get someone complaining, but at the end of the day, at least you get your chance to talk to them, right? Even if they don't pick up like on whatever you want to get across, right? Maybe they hear it and then they disagree. That is still okay, right? At least they hear you, and then they have the choice, right? At least you get the chance to influence it. Um, and then I also know some developers. I'm not gonna name any names, but like they also ask like random players, or not random, but like experienced players from certain areas very hard questions. For example, um, I was approached one time to just talk about like how did posses work, like when posses were the go-to thing, because that dev, he might have played Eve, but he didn't know like he didn't do any like alliance scale stuff. He never had to use posses. He did a lot of small scale and stuff like this, but he might have never seen a pos like Anchor. How does it work? Where's the content get generated with posses suddenly, right? And so like I wrote this doc to just like display like, okay, if you had a pos and it's mining a moon, then for example, this is how the strong timer exactly worked and how players worked with it, right? And what techniques, what tricks people used. Where did you like? Why did you drop 50 dreads on a pos, right? To get it done within 5 minutes and get out again, and then people get caught and all that stuff, right? So like, where's content generated or lost now, right? And at first I was surprised too that I was asked that question by a dev, but then like a second later I was like, yeah, it totally makes sense. Right? If you don't know, like, where else would you get the info other than asking some players? So yeah, I think
Yeah,
that
again,
was
it's another thing
really,
with, with this pandemic, and we don't get to have the meetups in person. I know that was a huge thing where the devs were always talking to people, a whole assortment of people about their things. And look, 95% of it is somebody up in a session asking some ridiculous question in front of the mic that they shouldn't be up there. But 5% of the time, it's a pretty valid thing that the devs can take something away from. So I think this last year has just been a real handicap on getting the ideas, the conversation um, going as fluid as it really needs to be for a game as complex as Eve. So I think it's a frustration point for everyone. I'm sure the CCP would rather have the kind of dialogue that they had in the past, but it's just not. Probably next year will be the first big meetups again. So
yeah. I think also I think it was actually CCP Rise when I had him on. I asked him like how much use does he get out of the CSM, and he said like I couldn't do my job without the CSM. which was pretty telling, I think. And I think everyone agrees too whenever we talk to Rise or Signal or whoever. Um, they're trying their best to get it right, and they simply know, like, okay, like I need some extra knowledge here. Like um, I can't just wing it and hope for the best. And yeah, overall, like, it's just good to know that they reach out.
Yeah, they reach out, and they're also, I mean, you got to imagine how many directions they're pulled in. I mean, number one, they're a business. They got to make money, and they got to show that they're making more money. They got to make the gun game fun to play for the person who starts, like, sees an ad on YouTube and clicks, and they got to make that fun. And then they got to make it fun for people like you and me that have been playing this for 10 plus years, right? So it's just not an easy task right now. But I'm hopeful for the future. I think hopefully we'll get through this economy stuff, get to some other era, and then once the in-person stuff, I think we'll see a pace of innovation that we've just kind of been lacking over the last year.
Yeah, the scarcity thing, it's kind of controversial, right? um, to be quite honest, logistics wise or industry wise, I'm the wrong guy to talk to. I don't know enough about that part, to be quite honest. Um, but I hear people complaining. I don't know who to listen to in this case, but I also don't see rockets in space, which makes me sad. So I think by now most people hope for this era to kind of end soon. But at the same time, I have the not suspicion, maybe I'm worried that with this war, CCP or like certain devs, I don't know, go and say like, look, it works. We should just keep it like this. We created scarcity, and boom, we've got the biggest war ever. Like, obviously, it works, and let's keep going. Like, or like, let's do it even better. Like, do more scarcity. Like, then we get even more wars. Right? It's like, oh please, like, are they gonna pick this up the wrong way? What do you think? Or do you
Well, I
even
think
agree? Maybe.
I, I haven't been a fan of the scarcity stuff the way it's been implemented. I've said that very publicly when I was on the CSM, and especially after I was off the CSM. I think there's a lot of alternate ways to reach the objectives they want, but I think I have faith. I know pretty much everyone on the CSM now, and regardless of what side of the war they're on, they all view that some of the fundamental concepts behind like scarcity breeds war hasn't really played out. And so I think the CSM is probably reflecting like, you know, um, as I've said, the rich in this war are getting richer, right? I've never been richer than in this war because of all the stuff I make and sell to people, right? Like, if anyone wants a hot tip, like dread guns, you make a sweet profit on some dread guns these days, right? Especially the T2s. Um, but I'm sure they're hearing from the CSM that like people are unhappy. Uh, you know, People put a lot of effort into those Rorquals, and it wasn't perfect for the game, but to just basically kick everybody to the side and say, well, they're useless now. All those skill points and ISK and all that thing you did is useless. Just suck it up. It only goes so far. So I think they have to have something that changes the game because we got to improve it. But continuing to just beat down, make it so hard to like earn ISK to go out and roam, it's not sustainable with the players right now. If it wasn't for the war, I think we'd have some real login issues.
I forgot who said it, and I'm not sure if it was on my Discord or on one of the core Discords. But someone brought it up. Like now, Hex are kind of nerfed, and you would like to have a battleships versus Hex fight, but no, battleships are so expensive that it doesn't really like if battleships were like half the price they are now, I think the battleship meta would have a real shot, especially now with the formations coming and all that stuff. I think battleships would be in a decent place. People would try like make it happen and stuff. I mean, we're flying Macarials, but I think Macarials are like
they ain't cheap. Special. They ain't cheap.
No, that's true. We can win the fight, but we're not gonna win the ISK at the end with them. Like that. That's usually what the story was. Like, I mean, we also fight a little outnumbered, but
Well, Well, my preference would have been that they changed what it takes to make capitals and super caps to use different materials, right? So
Then battleships.
disconnect. Yeah, I mean all the subcaps, the T1 subcaps are all just straight minerals. So when you increase the overall mineral cost to try and reduce or increase capital cost, you're increasing all the subcap costs, and you're making it more attractive to go to the hacks, things like that, T3s. So they're not getting the result they want. If they want fewer titans and supers and capitals in the game, make those more expensive and make the best economic choice to be do subcaps. But they decided to go a different way.
Yeah. I think I don't know much about this stuff, like I said, but I think that totally makes sense. I 100% agree. Um, if battleships were cheaper, people would be flying them right now all the time. Especially in the Imperium side, in a defensive situation, battleships are great. They're just great, and goons fly
Yeah,
megas
in
all the
those
time.
the Keep Stars fights, you guys were cranking out battleships mid battle because it only takes an hour to build a battleship, right? So it's that's sustainable and it's fun, and that's ship fleets smashing against each other. That's what I want in the game.
Yeah,
You know,
if it wasn't for the tie dye, right?
well, yeah, that I get, but still, if there wasn't so many capitals, all their fighters and all that kind of stuff, we wouldn't have the levels of tie dye that we have when we have these big fights, right?
Yeah, yeah. People want battleships back. Battleships are in a decent place, just not price wise. That's a little sad. Um, but yeah. Oh yeah, actually on my list was like we already talked about that. You actually tweeted about the stuff that you guys are not meeting each other on the CSM, or like you are not on the CSM anymore, but uh, the guys that are on the CSM right now. And you tweeted an old picture of like last year, no,
Yeah,
2019 must have
it
been,
was
right?
yeah, it was a year ago. It was the last summit, my last summit and the last CSM summit they had, and it was probably pretty late at night. We were out and about, and it was a snowstorm happening, and we were walking from one bar to another bar. I think there's like a karaoke bar we were walking to because they kicked us out of Fornetta, and then it was such a great night. Um, I think that's the night Merkel Chan and I found out that we were fraternity brothers. And Falcon tried to drink me under the table, but I was able to keep pace with him. So a memorable night for me, especially with this snowstorm going on. But I just wish the other CSM people had a chance to get together in person. I think it's really effective. And then the bigger thing is, I like it when all the Eve people from all the different sides get together in one place, right? And a lot of the bull and crap talk on the internet goes away, and you realize like we could easily be on the same group and friends, and it kind of takes down the the anger level quite a bit. I kind of think the game is missing that right now. So I don't care where the meetup would be in the world. I'd probably want to be on a plane to go there as soon as they have one.
I'm always surprised. Like more people should know, like that they could be in a different group anyway, because so many people have been in those on the other side before. Like by now, like this long history, we've got people in the lines from PL, NC, Hordes, who knows? Well, probably from Brave. Um, so like most people should know someone who has been on the other side. So I don't know where like always the dead
Well, it
serious
gets
stuff
whipped
comes
up,
from.
right? Like you motivate your people by kind of making the other seem like bad guys, and you're the heroes in the story, right? So it's just normal. Like this is how you motivate people, but it can go too far, right? And that's I have so many friends in every group in this game, pretty much. Here in Los Angeles, in the before times, we had a meetup. We'd all go to a bar together. Um, I went to the barbecue that collapsed out, the PL group that was the most after Brave in the world, and we all hung out and drank beers, had a great time together. And I think that kind of gets lost some of these days. People get so intense about the rivalries in game, they forget like we're all this tribe of space nerds that everyone else thinks are weird people in the rest of the world, right?
Yeah. um. Yes. So about the CSM also, what changes did you try to push for while you were on there, in particular? Or what changes did you try to prevent? Like, CSB comes to you guys and like they did it at the end anyway.
Well, I can't really get into super
T2
specifics,
Savage
but
Rounds.
well, T2 salvage drones, I've been pushing that for years, and I'm very honored they did it. I think the biggest thing is trying to get to the developers that the monotonous stuff, while EVE players will do that, there's a limit to how much they want to put up with the monotony of mining, the monotony of some of these tasks, because sometimes they would propose things that would make it even more monotonous, take even longer, be more frustrating to do. And that was my biggest thing, is this game should be fun. And some people, they do like mining. It's not my thing, but some people like it. But you can't make it too much worse on them, right? Or they're just going to be frustrated. So I think there was a feeling that, harden the fuck up a bit, but there's only so far you want to make this game. I don't know if you can hear the stuff outside my house.
Just a little bit. I don't know what it is. It's not too bad.
They're doing the lawn next door, the air blower next door.
KLDD or Kid Sid. Wait, is that your buddy Sid from the Not Sotas?
No, Sid doesn't go on Twitch. Yeah.
Does he even play EVE? I don't even know.
No, he doesn't. His big favorite game is Scrabble. And so he just lives vicariously through me. We like to hang out and eat dinner together, things. He's just like my best friend. So if he just happened to start getting in the videos for fun, but now he's a grandfather. We're all excited. He's a grandfather now for the first time.
Oh, nice. Congratulations, in case he ever listens to this. But yeah, Pando didn't like being called a space nerd. No. I'm a proud space nerd, all right? Very proud space nerd. My nervous laughter gave it away. You know why? I have to look at my notes because Miranda isn't here today. Like I have my job is back to like 150%. So I don't.
Yeah, we're skipping all over his notes. So he's trying to trying to sing. Are we covering everything in the notes?
It's tough, guys. It's tough. All right. I hate caracals. No, Chris, I love caracals. Right. I love all the spaceships. Maybe not all of them. There are some spaceships that I'm like, do we have to have this? ECM bursting scepters. Do we need ECM bursting scepters? I don't know. I mean, I like griffins, right? That was a good one, by the way.
Oh, yeah, you were there that night. We fought for like hours when I it was so. I think the funny thing about that fight is this, right? Is like for the people who were in it, I assume on your side people were laughing and joking, and on my side we were laughing and joking, and I'm like, this is the best night. Like, it really doesn't matter what we're fighting over. The fact that we're doing crazy ass shit in EVE, that's what this game is all about. But people on the outside look at it and they're trying to declare a winner and a loser and like all this stuff. And I'm like, don't you get it? Like, people were laughing on both sides. That's what this game should be. But if you weren't there, you didn't know what it was like, and it was just fucking hilarious.
It might have been the longest IHub ref in the history of EVE. I mean, it wasn't that long. Right? I set out for like, usually when I do a fleet, it's like a 2-hour fleet. I want to be home, right? Sometimes it stretches to 3 hours, and then it's still. I think it was in total it was like a 3-hour thing, but it wasn't planned as a 3-hour thing. That's the point, right? So we went out. I forgot what it was. There was another objective in that constellation first. So we did that, and you guys did some other stuff, I think in Delve or whatever, and you only had like a few dudes at home. And then we're like, all right, how do we poke these guys now? So they come out and play. And we also had another objective, which was EX6, the EX6 I wanted to toast, and it wasn't out yet. So we went to GE and sent only one toaster over to EX6. And I was like, go guys, we're going to spool up here and let's see what happens. And then in the middle of it, like we were like 20 minutes in or so, then the first Griffins showed up, right? And then our toaster broke. Or like, the lock broke because of those griffins, and we only had 2 guys there toasting, so it wasn't too hard to jam them. But we were determined, and my guys, they didn't know, like, it wasn't really that important, so everyone was like, we have to get this done, right? We can't just keep them from doing this. And then they came back, or you guys came back with more griffins and ECM bursting scepters, and Well, no, and I don't even know how many griffins we killed all over and over again.
I lost that night. I lost 19 griffins.
And that's just you, right? I think that was like a
That's
ridiculous
just me.
amount.
That's
Yeah.
just that was just me. And the fact is, we had hundreds more. Like we have this thing, the dojo, that we hand out free ships, and it's full of everything. So we had hundreds of griffins to go. But then I think you guys started bringing like just this any ship that could fit an Entosis link started appearing on the iHub, and so we were having to change the jams, and it was, but it was just a fun time, right? And like
Yeah.
it was good. It wasn't so serious business as some of these fights are.
The problem for us was like we started it like, just to poke a fight. Then we got a little bit of a fight, but not necessarily the fight we wanted, right? And then now we are committed though. Like now we have to get this done. Like we can't just leave here. They're gonna claim victory, guys. Right? If we leave now, that was never the plan to even toast this app. But if we leave in the middle of it, they're gonna just claim victory. Like we cannot leave. We have to toast this. And I have to admit, in the middle of it, I kind of got frustrated. I was like, is this ever gonna be like it? Like, am I gonna ever get off this grid? Right? And yeah, I think 150 griffins or so was the
Yeah, it was absolutely insane.
yeah.
But you guys had those great healers, and you can't fight healers like kitchen sink. You got to have a doctrine that can beat them. And there was something going on somewhere else, so I just said, "Look, we're just gonna mess around, and if we get them to stop, we get them to stop. It's not the end of the world." But no, that was. I wish more fights had that much humor to it and wasn't so serious,
I
serious business.
I have to say, I love those Gilas, but they're really shit when it comes to killing griffins. Because you have to send those drones first, right? The griffin lands, it can probably cycle twice before the drones reach. So like a Seabo Munin or whatever would have just like within 2 seconds, pow, job done. But the Gilas have to send the drones first. And then you always had like enough time to jam us.
Yeah,
And
well, you land with preheated. I think you could fit 5 jams. You land preheated. I know what I'm going to lock, and as soon as I lock, they're all firing, and they either hit it in that first second I'm locking, or they don't, and I'm not going to make it to a second cycle. But more often than not, it would hit. So it's a cheesy way to do it, but it was. Well, now there's a lot of Dinkle corpses out there now.
yeah, I gotta be fair. Like we like before someone says it's dirty or whatever. Like, but we did the same thing over and over again in Fountain. Not necessarily in this war, but whenever like LSH came out of their holes and tried stuff. Uh, it's kind of fun. Like I loved flying on my Alpha Toon, just flying a random Griffin, just warping on grid, and there's like 3 guys, and you just keep them busy, and you warp on pings and all that stuff. It is kind of fun, I have to say. If you're a brave guy listening right now, it's horrible. Don't do it. All right, don't do it. But yeah,
And if you're an initiative person listening, like those helas, you shouldn't fly them. They just show that you don't know how to fly your ship right. So no, you don't want to be a drone bunny person. So just don't fly the helas anymore.
yeah. The thing is, healers, they're not that hard to counter actually, right? You know that, but you know, they're like a fun doctrine for us. I usually like whenever you see a Gila fleet, it's not that serious usually. But they're quite flexible if you do like I shouldn't give away all my tricks here. Maybe I should stop talking, but when you do like mass and Tosa stuff, you need a lot of you have those high slots, right? So they're really good for that stuff. But yeah.
No, it's look, when they're FC'd right and they're flown right, it's a good fleet doctrine. You have to know how to counter it well, right? You can't just have your kitchen sink the people in standing fleet just randomly go stop them. You have to know what you're doing to beat them. But but there's a lot of doctrines like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're only like there's a lot of doctrines that work on a certain scale, and Gilas are one of them, right? If you scale it up, and that's what we did when I pushed them onto alliance level. I took a fleet pretty much at the beginning of the war, or in the middle, I forgot. I took a fleet like a big Gila fleet, actually 100 plus, into head, and then the fight that we got was a little too big for them, right? And then they just fall apart very fast, right? If you don't have that ADC, it's just too much, right? And then you guys brought like a chunky fleet of, I think it was Munins and a couple caps, and then it's over so fast. And they're not fast even with MWD, right? Yeah, we fly them at AB now because like for roams and stuff, it's like a little bit more flexible. But even with MWD, you're not gonna get away from anyone. Like they're not fast.
No, there's several doctrines we're seeing lately that kind of have, when they're flown right at the right scale in the right situation, they're just amazing. Like some of these tornado gangs that are running around now blapping people, like it's great, but if something goes wrong, if your FC's not completely on it, if it's not perfect, like you get the full wipe, you know. But I'd rather have doctrines like that like, there's a rock paper scissors than some of the hack meta has been. While the FCs will all tell me you can always beat these guys if you bring the exact hard counter, like I like it when it's a little more.
When it's a little more, sorry.
When it's a little bit more like, you have to fly it right, you have to use it in the right conditions, but right now it kind of like bring your Serbs, bring your Munions, you're going to do pretty well against most things, and I wish it wasn't so. That's the go-to right now, but I don't know. I don't know what these sig changes are going to do. I'm not the theory crafting FC person, but I'm interested to see if we're going to see a shift with that. I don't know if it's going to require a whole fleet getting whelped and then people decide to change or what.
Yeah, so first of all, I think people are ready to switch. They want to switch. And you see a lot of alliances like try things like, goons are flying Megatrons. They have been flying them for a long time, actually. And then you see, for example, dock workers show up with like Typhoons. Then you see, I'm not sure if Zealots count. They kind of do count because they're not MWD shield hacks. They're AB, like armor hacks, like traditional armor hacks. So they tried that stuff. There's a lot of alliances that are looking hard to find some cool shit to fly. And, we might have now a decent balance with the hacks, but it will still take a long time till the meta develops away from them because they're so, like everyone's so used to them. And they're still a good tool, right? And they should be. They should be an okay tool. It just shouldn't be the go-to tool for everything, like all the time. So I'm gonna predict if you leave it like it is right now, maybe tweak a little bit with the scarcity stuff towards battleships, make battleships affordable. The meta will develop away from hacks within a year. That's what I would say if it's affordable, right? Other doctrines that are affordable, right? I think. Give it a year and you'll see other stuff being flown more often, especially battleships if they're cheap. But yeah,
we had a Maelstrom doctrine that worked pretty good for a while, but then everything just evolved away from it. They just got eaten up after a while with the hacks. But
yeah, we had Ravens work pretty well defensively. We have now the Mags. They only work because they're faster than Munions. We said that one time where two skirmish boosters in the fleet, and both of them fucked up and didn't have the rep deployment. One of them forgot his link to turn it on. The other guy had 2 times the same script loaded, but no rapid deployment. So we base everything in this fight on our speed, and both skirmish boosters have no rapid deployment charge link, and we burn away from the game. We're like, why are we the same speed as the Munions? We should be way faster. And we don't get away, That was frustrating, I have to say. But yeah, they only work because they're so fast. Otherwise, we couldn't fly them. And then what else? I don't know. The Gilas, I guess. Someone's calling him out. Yeah, it's Piercy, right? Enough name and shame. He's gonna live the legend forever. Yeah. Having the same script loaded twice. Yep. It's gotta get you some fame, I guess.
Sounds like a title needs to be assigned.
Yeah, he already had a title. What was it? Ah, yeah. He showed up to he was the only fax or the only horde red. I forgot what it was. But he was supposed to be the shining hero, right? He comes in on his fucking horse and rides into town and saves everyone, right? And then he's like travel fit and just dies on the spot. So when everyone talks about the Piercy fit, that's a pure travel fit, whatever cap. Right? So I was like, oof, that's disappointing.
He meant well.
Yeah. His heart is in the right place. Just his fit isn't. But yeah, there's a lot of those legends. But that's what Eve is, especially in fights. That's what it should be, right? All about the mistakes, all about those. And you have to, when there's enough room for mistakes, people will be more willing to engage because they know, okay, the other side can make mistakes. So that's also my big take on the fleet formations, right? Yes, it's powerful, especially in certain situations, but it's also powerful in the other way, right? So I'm hoping for a lot of mistakes that people can have fun with.
Well, I haven't played with them, and I'm not, the expert in it, but it seems like for decloaking things, like once you get somebody, you're going to be able to like warp in kind of decloaking formations. Or am I wrong? Is how it's going to work?
But that situation is super rare that you would warp onto something to decloak something, right? Like when does that ever happen? It might just happen here and there. Like if there's a super on a save, and then you warp to it in a sphere, I guess, right? Then yes, you would have a solid chance of decloaking it. But that's so rare. I would say that's not going to play a big.
And what about warping them in on like kitey people? Because we're always trying to scan down the kitey people and get close to them,
That's
get
the big
tackle on
thing.
them. But they're gonna, in theory, you're gonna be able to warp and be on the other side of them, so you'll be in a box around them in some way. I haven't played with it, but it sounds like that could be a radical change to that game's gameplay.
Yeah, actually, last episode. Oh wait a second, was it last episode? I think it was. But 3 tiers: Bjornby, Suetonia, and Casper and Baltrum, and they are all small scale guys that like have a lot of experience. Like that's the main thing we talked about, was actually the concern that like now you give everyone the tool of warping in front of you, which is a completely new thing, right? If you have point A and point B, you could only warp to it or at range to it, but you couldn't warp in front of it or behind it, if you want to, like, whatever way you want to see it. But I think so the formations, like let's say the sphere or like the plane, if you warp to stuff, you're not going to land that much further in front of them. They're not that big. They're really not. So I don't think that's going to be a big issue, but it's going to be a little bit better for them. Right? It's going to be a little easier to catch people. But the big thing is the what do you call them again? The last formation, the relative formation. So, and the big issue is that you can warp someone to himself, right? So you are 151 km from me, and I warp the fleet to you. That means you bounce 150 km forwards, and that's a big issue. Or like I don't know if it's going to be a big issue. Well, I kind of do know actually. On kiting, it's going to be a big thing, right? So people, like, the grid is completely opened up. People can bounce around way quicker. Kiting guys will be in trouble way faster. And if the blob is big enough, you can't really capitalize on mistakes no matter what anyway. So yeah, that's going to be interesting to see. You know what was interesting though? Casper came up with a pretty simple but I think smart solution to the whole problem. Like my solution first was to lower the minimum warp rate, to lower the formation to under 150, so you can't warp someone to himself. But Casper said, like, why not increase the warp range to 300? Right? Why not say, okay,
the minimum warp range?
the minimum warp range, yeah. So you can't warp to something that's closer than 300. And I think that makes total sense. That gives a buff to kiting, because now you can't get warped on easily. You can be within engagement range, but not warp range more easily. And I kind of like it. Thinking about this, like I've been thinking about this for like a couple days now, and I cannot come up with like something really negative about it. But if someone in chat has like a real like input on that and says like this could be a problem and why, then send me a message. But I haven't heard anything. Or like, what could you think of something maybe?
Well, off the cuff, if you're running an FC driven fleet, you have all those tools. But if you're just kind of kitchen sinking it, which people tend to do, you're not able to take advantage of it. So you're basically, if someone does get tackle and you're within 300, which is, you know, pretty broad, and you're not having active FC who's warping people around, like, you've just kind of made it really much harder. But that'd be my first, on hearing this. So I think, not every situation you have an FC who's warping people around. So you just got to remember, how do we make it so that a less organized group can still have a reasonable fight?
Yeah. Oh, another change that is coming that I thought you might have some thoughts on is that expert system. What do you think about that? Like, I know there's a certain group of people that, jump on anything that's bought for Plex and just lose their mind about it. And, but what's your take on it?
Well, like, CCP has to make money, and they're going to try and keep coming up with ways to make money, and people will gnash their teeth over that. But it's a business; it's got to make money. So I think they're going to keep coming up with ways to try and do that. I think for the most part, I'm not totally upset about it. I think the thing that the Magic 14 thing is the thing that bothers me, because we in the CSM had proposed, like, make the Magic 14 more of a reward for making progress in the game, much like other games. Like, you get to a certain point, it unlocks a huge abilities for you. In the Magic 14, most of them are things that just help you basically sit in a ship, or the basics of fit a ship. Not as much like I can go fly anything in the world, but like you can fit the basic doctrines that let you kind of really explore the game. So seeing the Magic 14 as an expert thing was kind of weird for me. Um, I think having a way for some people, they might want to just, hey, I'll do the expert thing to get an interceptor so I can fly around and see what this space looks like, and that could be good. But I'm not super butthurt about it the way some people are. I get their frustration about it because CCP's gone back on some of the things they've said, like selling skill points and things like that. And then, but I just think CCP, like, their communication needs to be better about this stuff. Like, hey, things have to change, and we're going to, we said this thing 5 years ago. And so we're just being honest with you. But they don't like to do that for some reason. So I don't have a problem with expert systems. I think it could be good. It's just the Magic 14 is the one that bothers me.
Um, it's actually quite interesting that you said, like, yeah, those Magic 14. For those who are not aware, that's like skills, like, I don't know. So you have like maximum cap recharge, maximum cap, maximum speed, whatever, right? The basic stuff to operate, and then fitting requirements, CPU and power grid and stuff. And I think it makes total sense that would be rewards for, like, let's say, like an epic arc kind of mission, right? Leads you to maybe the cap recharge one leads you to I don't know, Venal, right? Maybe some like random somewhere in Venal. If you want that skill, well, there's a mission here. It doesn't have to be a crazy mission, but give it some travel, make let it pass through some scary space, and then people have to make a decision. Like, what do I do? Do I take this gate in China time zone? It's fraternity space, for example, right? Or do I, am I smarter? Like, do I put some thought into it and then check, okay, now it's quiet, or, stuff like this. So they get some experience in nullsec too. And I think that makes total sense. Yeah. I like it.
I think I read the announcement somewhere, that they're going to give everybody the interceptor expert system when they launch this thing. So, like, everybody who has an alpha gets to fly an interceptor for a week or a month or whatever it is, which I think is going to be wild,
Yeah. Yeah.
to see that happen.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be a thing in general in the future. There's gonna be events, and then they hand out those things randomly, I think. And it might not be scepters. I think scepters is probably one of the worst things you could do because they're bubble proof and all that stuff. I'm not sure if I like it. But
Yeah, but that's the big kickoff, right? That's the thing, right? Like, everyone's gonna want to, like, who has an alpha is gonna be like, oh, I'll use it and I'll fly my scepter around and do things with it. So it's gonna get a lot of attention when they do that. So that's, I'm sure, why they're doing it.
I can already see a lot of smart bomb battleships, but yeah. I mean, maybe Scepters is the exactly the right choice because those they can jump into and say, okay, I've got a fairly high chance of survivability, so they have to still buy the ship. Right? If they would say like everyone can fly a Marauder now, like it's not like every noob would then buy a Marauder, right? But maybe they jump into that scepter and they're like, yeah, okay, I can travel to Nullsec and have a look. Like now I'm bubble proof, right? Maybe that maybe it is
Yeah, well,
the
that's
exact
what
right choice.
the new players we have, like, it's always like, train a little bit up, but you really want the interceptor because that gives you freedom to move, you know? And, but the alpha people can't get do it, so, I think it will encourage them. I think that if you're gonna try and get some of these people to convert from alpha to omega, letting them have a taste of interceptor is, that's a pretty tasty thing for a lot of people.
Yeah, actually, I haven't thought about that before, but yeah, I think you're right. Maybe scepters are the way to go. I mean, what other ship types? What would you say, like new players that join Brave and so on, like after scepters? What's another thing that people would like instantly train on? What's like super useful that like all the players don't even think
Well,
about nowadays?
they wanna make ISK, right? Like, they don't already have billions in the bank that they can, like, throw into industry or station trading, right? So they wanna make ISK, so the mining stuff, the ratting stuff, procurers are just, like, huge value. If you can get a procurer, you can make some ISK on some of if you're in a group and they have moons to mine, those procurers pay for themselves really quick. Um, and some of the ratting ships, I'm not a big ratter, but I know there's stuff that you have to be alpha to fly. Um, so there's any way you make money. Somebody, I don't know what these things are going for, $5 or $6 US or whatever it is. If you can start making some money, people will do the math and say, okay, I'm going to give myself a month of this expert system and I'm going to make a bunch of ISK doing it. So I think those will be the most popular ones.
Yeah. Via is bringing up salvaging, and since you're the actually, the salvage stone is named after you, right?
Yeah, I couldn't believe that when they
Yeah.
told me about that. I was uh, pretty surprised and very honored. It's astounding to have something in the game named after you.
Yeah,
So I'm
I don't
still
think.
feel a little verklempt when I think about it.
Yeah, I don't think there's another player who has a mod named after him. I don't think so. I know of some people, for example, the grapplers, right? The one grappler is named after Gunnar Nelson, another one like Karelin, famous Russian wrestler. Forgot what the third one was.
And there's
Uh,
some modules if
yeah.
when we're testing the Aegisov with the Entosis, there's a whole set of Entosis things named after the alliances that helped with the testing and all that stuff. And there's other in-game like special commodity things, that are named after people, but I would have never imagined an actual usable module named after me. So that's pretty wild.
Well, that's an achievement. Pando MJD win, yeah, like that would be my dream. Pando's modified MJD. Just like have it like 4 second cycle time. That would be
Yeah, I just
one
flew
day.
up to Orspace to get a bunch of the BPCs because you have to fly to Orspace to get them. And since I don't do faction warfare, I don't have any LP, so I had to pay someone else to use their LP to get the drones named after me. So good times.
Yeah, nobody does all missions really. It's all Concord LP converted. That's another thing with the filaments that were introduced in the ore um what's it called, LP store. And that was so weird to me. Like I never got that part. Like nobody ever bought them on the LP store, I believe. Luckily, they got then introduced later on, uh, more freely and stuff. But yeah, that was a surprise. Nobody is doing those missions, and nobody wants to either. Right? So
Well, no, it's the Concord LP does everything, right? And with all the incursions, I mean, I think the latest MER showed how popular those incursions are. People are just
especially
making
now, yeah.
they're making silly amounts of money. I guess people wait in line to go on the incursions. I don't know that it's not for me, but for some people, they're making a bunch of ISK and LP doing that. So
Yeah. Um. So what else do I have on the list? Uh, we
well,
already
we
kind
should
of.
talk about the war a little bit. Otherwise, everyone's going to be upset we didn't talk about the war.
All right. What's going on in the? How is it going in the war for you guys? What do you think?
Well, I think some of the people are loving it. They've never had a better time than all this fighting, and they get to use their big ships, and it's what they thought war was going to be, ups and downs, and constantly fighting and all that stuff. And then there's other people that are, hey, I just want to do industry, or I just want to mine, or I don't want to be called on strat ops every single day. I think that's in every group you're seeing it, right? There's some people that are just like, I'm loving it. Other people like, I put up with it. When's it going to be over? And then some other group is like, this is just no fun for me. So I think we talked about early when this thing started. I said it's going to be a long war. It's going to go up and down. There's going to be all kinds of propaganda, and
Did you know it's
it's all
gonna be that long though?
I knew it'd be long. I mean, we fought Winter Co, and each of those was like 6 to 8 months, and those are pretty long, hard fought campaigns. So I knew it was going to be at least that long. I thought at this point, to be honest, just one of the sides' morale would break and people would just kind of walk away. But it doesn't look like it's happening. So that's kind of unprecedented. Um, I think most of the wars we've seen going back, it comes up to a single titanic battle, and then like, okay, the battle went one way, and then there's an agreement, and there's a nip in place, or there's some kind of end that's marked on a date. I don't know what's going to happen in this war right now. I think neither side knows how to really end it, right? If they wanted to end it, so um, I think it's unprecedented in Eve right now. So right now it looks like cracking this 1DQ is what it's going to be about, but that's a tough one with the way the Fortas are and the iHub and all that kind of stuff. Again, I'm not the tactician, but um, there's just so much going on right now. Um, so um, I'm having fun still. It's a bit stressful to be the leader because there's people that are um, they don't like being at war for 8 months, and so you have to kind of either reassure them or give them a better thing to do. But it's this is what makes this game unlike anything else in video games right now.
Yep. Um. Yeah, I don't know. I personally talked about the war before. I'm not a big fan of it and all that stuff. Um. And I don't mind or read or anything. I didn't do it before the war or during the war, or I don't plan on doing it after. But I just think overall, overall content was kind of lost, and the result we get on at the end is my big question here. Like, I'm not a I'm not a coalition guy, so I don't like being part of the biggest coalition, but now there's an even bigger coalition, and I'm not a fan of that. I'm worried that we end up like with that coalition to stay, right? So, what do you think is like when this if this war is over at some point, which there's a big question mark there. Maybe this war will never end. Do you think Papi will ever like really disband? Like like I think Willie stated he would like when this is over, it's gonna be back to like PanFam and Legacy and stuff like this. Do you think that's gonna happen?
Well, I don't know exactly how it's going to go. In my perfect world, like I would love it if all the existing coalitions just shattered and that new coalitions of people that were more like-minded could all like reform together, right? Like in Brave's most beneficial thing is we would, have like a reset of all the standings of everyone, right? Because that'd be very interesting, right? It would change up who our friends are, who our foes are, where we live, all those kind of things.
Just do
I
it.
don't know. I'm just well, yeah, like, but go tell Darkshines to give me a call, right? And we can go fuck off to the northeast or wherever it is, northwest. But but right now, and I've said this before, and I've said it to diplomats on every side, like flipping in the middle of a war or bailing out in the middle of a war right now, it's not just about today. It's about like next year. Is anybody going to trust you in any kind of agreement, any kind of deal, anything like that? So I think
Yep.
people have cast their lot with this war for better or for worse. And you have Reddit posters and Twitter people and people in chat that will tell you this should flip flap the other. But as a leader, you know that if you were to change sides, even for the best intention and whatever, the ramifications of that last you far more than just this war in the next couple of months. It lasts you forever in this game, the way people's histories are.
Yep.
And people don't want to take that into account, but that's the reality that people who lead groups have to face and understand. So that doesn't get talked about a lot, but I think that's the reality.
Yeah, an interesting point is like I actually invited Hanzo. Maybe like when they first, so Hanzo Viper being the leader of Sip Squad, when they first left Papi, but we couldn't line it up because it's very late. Like 2100 is late for a Siberian time zone, right? Like it just didn't fit, and then he was too busy and all that stuff. And he got engaged, or did he get married? I think he just got engaged that day too, or whatever. Like he was just too busy, right? But so Hanzo, I mean, it's a unique situation for those guys. And I'm just gonna tell the story from my perspective, how I experienced, and I think I was kind of involved a little bit, so I know the like what was going on. But when they first joined Legacy, I feel like shortly after they already regretted that decision a little bit because things didn't go all that well for them. They felt like, okay, because we were working together all the time, we were partners, but because of this weird move with Ranger Regiment and Dracarys, he felt like, okay, the Imperium side, that was a little bit of a dick move, and then they went with Legacy. But they wanted to work with us, and then we wanted to work together, but we had two different coalitions. It just didn't work, so there was like regret right there. But they were already like way before the war kicked off. They were already like, oh man, maybe we should have done that. Like maybe not. You never know, right? With these decisions, sometimes you gotta wing it. You just gotta make a decision. So like Hanzo made that decision, and they stayed, and they're loyal dudes, right? They are, right? Yes, they flipped during the war, but they're like, it's a loyal group of guys, especially Hanzo. But at what point, when you know you want to switch sides at some point, how do you switch correctly? And at what point do you say, okay, now the time span has passed, right? We're like 8 months in, or like, I don't even know how long we're into this war, right? Like, how long is he supposed to wait? Like, when is it going to be the correct move? Right? Is this moment ever going to come? Right? So,
yeah, but see, for me, you just don't get that. There's never a time you can do something like that everybody's going to go, oh, I understand why they're doing it. No hard feelings. Like it doesn't exist for people. And people don't want to hear that, but I think that's the truth, right? You're going to create a grudge no matter when or how you do it.
And so, like, I agree, right? I think I said also at the beginning of the war, people kept saying like, "Inna, just leave," right? Before it even started, "Inna, just leave," because we were always doing our own thing to a degree anyway, and we could like stand on our own, like we could do that. But we talked about it earlier, right? It's not that easy. It's not as easy as people like to make it out, especially the guys like roaming around with 10 guys, right? They are always the guys outspoken about it, like, why don't you just leave, right? It's easy. But like I said right away too, like, now the war's here. Now we cannot leave. It's impossible, right? Even if we wanted to leave a day before and we had the fucking stuff planned out and everything, right? The second the announcement is there's a war, like that, those plans are gone, right? Now we're in war. Like, you cannot leave during war. It's just not possible. So yeah, I totally agree. But at the same time, I see the situation they are into, right? So there is always like, I think everyone agrees with it, but to various like degrees, I guess, right? There's a little bit of room, I guess, when you make those decisions, And they just made another decision there, which is like a ballsy decision, because now, like, I mean, you're fighting us in Catch, and now you're fighting them also in Quirius. And I thought from Hanzo's perspective, that was a ballsy move to leave, and then he could have at the same time said, okay, no, I just don't want to be part of this entirely. Right? I think that would have been an easier move, definitely easier. than to say, okay, yeah, we're out of this, but also we know our future is going to be with the Imperium, so we might as well join right now since they're in war. You know what I mean? So they could have just stayed out of it and said like, fuck all this like war stuff, we do our own thing. Ballsy move to move into Curious and then say like, yep, we're in this war and now we're on the other side, and just try to do it differently, right?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of grudges in the game. I know some people, they live for the grudges. So Hanzo did what he thought was best for his folks, so I don't begrudge him that. So I'm not going to go on some big campaign of waving uh, a meme at him or something like that. He's doing what he thinks is right, but I think only if you kind of lead the groups do you see the kind of choices and whether you can or can't make the choices. And so many people just, they don't see it from that point of view. They just don't understand why people don't flip instantly and make choices. But we're kind of we're in this war for better for worse on both your group and my group. You know,
Yeah. Well,
but I think that's a big difference. I think we see in the game is there's people taking this war extremely like personally, and then there's people who are kind of like, we're trying to have fun and play the game and do things. Um, and it colors your perspective on who's winning, who's losing, is this like worth our time and all that kind of stuff. So no one's ever going to get that dopamine hit the same way. So I just think people are never going to agree on things about what any group or side is doing. And you see it in that propaganda. Both sides think they're winning, that they're just a hairs away from victory. Doesn't feel like that to me on either side, right? Um, it seems like a grind, and like you mentioned, like it could go on forever. So I don't know. It's the weirdest war I've ever been in. And any other time we've been either kicked out of somewhere, it's like when we lose a certain amount, we're like, okay, we're gone, we're out of here, right? Or when we've won against somebody, it's like they're like, okay, you beat us, just can we chill out and go back to our corners for 6 months and like everyone rebuild. And that was just the way war was in Eve. And this is different. Like we're in a whole nother phase right now. And I don't know how it's gonna go.
but you know what? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think overall the mentality of people has changed over the course of this war too, right? So it might have started really bitter and really like war of extermination kind of thing, but it kind of moved away from it. Not that wasn't necessarily like anyone's plan, but like I think if you shoot each other constantly, right? Like we do, like there's a respect that's growing at some point. So even the most bitter guy is like, I think the most bitter pappy guy has to admit that goons, that they're still alive and kicking, holding the 1DQ constellation, that's fucking legit. Like there's like, what other
Oh,
group?
absolutely. Absolutely. That's what
Yeah,
I've told my people from the
yeah.
beginning. If you go back to every single video, I say the same thing. Like, don't underestimate the Imperium. They're going to be crafty. They're going to try everything. They're not going to be pushovers. Like, I've said it from the beginning, and it's been shown out. Like, there's no other group in the game. There's no one else that has been able to go up against the entire game and not die. And that's where we are now. So
Yep.
kudos. Um, I just don't know how this ends. I don't know, can we all sit surrounding 1DQ and fighting over that for another year? I just don't know.
We
Right?
probably can. With another round of war bonds and we're good to go. Yeah. You know, it might just be the legendary war that will never end. Right? It might just be. We will see.
Well, my fear is that it ends the way some of these things have, where somebody flips a switch and somebody gets disbanded, or like there's something that flips the switch, right? And it makes a good story, it makes a good book, but it's not fun when you see those things happen, right? Um, so we'll see, but I don't put that outside the realm of possibility right now.
Yeah. Well, I hope that's not gonna happen. Like, I want to. How about like an honorable 1-on-1 at the Sun, Villy versus Mittens, and then we just call it? That would be the better ending, right? A legendary ending.
I'm game for that. I'm game. It's Yeah, it's I want to get back to just building stuff all day and not worrying about building PDAs and solve timers and all that kind of stuff, right? There's other people that they never want the war to end. I totally get that too. But I don't know. I got a full time job. I get home, and it can feel like another full time job.
Yeah, that's a big thing also when it comes to FCing. Like one big ingredient when you like FC, time. It simply is time, right? You have the time to be always on track with like everything that's going on, and you know when to form and what to form. Are you flexible if someone hits your shit right now? Can you form right now? Or do you have like stuff to take care of and all that? Like that's a big thing. Time. Not everyone has that kind of time. But yeah.
Right. Yeah, the planning of it is like people underestimate, the amount of effort that goes into making timers happen at the same time, and where do you put your forces and what's important and which do you form for, which do you not form for. Like those are tough decisions that get made all the time right now. And most people never know that the complexity of all that stuff that goes on. And it wears on people, right? Because if you make the wrong choice and you didn't form when you needed to, like people are upset with you as a leader.
Yeah.
And
And
again,
sometimes
people don't see that. They just want to like, oh, there's a ping, I should go out, or there's a ping, oh, but I'm watching this movie on Netflix. So
yeah, and sometimes it's harder to not form than it is to form. When you know, for example, we had a phase also during this war um, where we simply had too many fleets going on. We have a lot of FCs and everyone wants to do some stuff, but you kind of have to channel it so the guys in fleet, they're not completely getting burned out. Like there's like, and they're all like, we have like different levels, as you know, I'm pretty sure. But let's say they're all a beta op. Like there's 7 beta ops. Like what op do I choose? Like I can't join every single one, and then stuff gets it just gets too much at some point. Right? We had like a little bit of a phase there where we had just too much going on, and we had to like slow down, give everyone a little bit of a break, and pick up momentum again, and then go. It's like it's not always easy.
yeah, it's resource management, right? And
Yep.
you get spread out too thin, and then you don't do anything well, and you want to be able to do things well. So it's tough choices people have to make, which is just that's what makes Eve unique, right? Is uh, actions have consequences, choices have consequences.
Yep. Vertizo banned? What? Why would you ban my Vertizo? Um, I would say we are well over 1.5 hours actually. I would say we just ended on this. Hopefully we're gonna have a lot of more good fights, preferably in catch. I kind of like the less tie-dye thing. Or maybe an impasse. No, you wanna fight an impasse? That's probably
Well, there's
not your
fights going on
preferred.
everywhere. It's like I told my folks, like we're spread out across a lot of different regions, so we're just trying to get our stuff together, so it's not so confusing for everyone. But I appreciate you having me on the show. Believe it or not, I have to go back to work to go do more emails because it's still Friday afternoon here. So I hope you have a good weekend. I'm sure we'll see you on Grid. To all the people in chat, I hope you're having a good day. Stay safe out there. This virus is killing people. I don't want to go any sinal vigils in the middle of this. So thanks for having me on the show.
Yep. Thanks for coming on. Much appreciated that you got on. And yeah, let's see each other on the battlefield.
I'll
And
bring my Griffin.
I hope so. And the guys on stream, thanks for hanging out. I hope you guys enjoyed it. You can actually we got fresh skins today actually. So you can, when you're fast, in a minute, you can get a Rupture skin. And yeah, thanks for the subs earlier, guys. Minnie and the other guys. And see you guys on the next one. Bye.